Well. It's another episode of Ask Dr. Love. I'm your host, Dr. George Xavier Love, and you are listening to the podcast that answers any questions you have about acupuncture, herbal medicine, meridian therapy, food therapy, superfoods, nutrition, and your health. If love is the answer, what is your question? So we're coming to you today, and I am so excited about the information because all we hear about is cortisol. Cortisol is no good. Cortisol makes you fat. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Well, then why do we need cortisol at all? And isn't there anything good about cortisol? Of course there is. If you can overproduce it, you can also underproduce it. So we need cortisol. So I'm here to set the record straight and help you understand what is cortisol, why is cortisol too much or too little. So, as always, if you have any questions, just type it in the comments below if you're on Facebook, YouTube, or IG. And you can listen to Ask Dr. Love on any number of podcast platforms like iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, or Radio Play. You can listen to archive shows at anchor.fm/Ask Dr. Love. You can say, hey Siri, play Ask Dr. Love podcast. You can say, hey Google, play Ask Dr. Love podcast. Or you can say, hey Alexa, play Ask Dr. Love podcast. Because every day I drop pearls. So today, what is cortisol? Obviously, it's a hormone. And obviously, it is secreted by the adrenal glands. But guess what? It is assisted by the pituitary and the hypothalamus. Wait a second, that's too much science in one sentence. I think I know the adrenals sit on top of the kidneys. I think I know what adrenaline is, but I'm not really sure what cortisol is. Where the hell is the pituitary? The pituitary sits behind the forehead, what some people call the third eye. And the hypothalamus is the thing that takes thoughts and feelings and translates it into action. So your nervous system is run by the hypothalamus. So if the cortisol is secreted by the adrenals, but it's assisted by the pituitary and the hypothalamus. So how does all that work together? Well, the pituitary is what we call the master gland. It regulates all of the hormones that the body produces. And so adrenaline, noradrenaline, and glucosteroids, which cortisol is a glucosteroid, is assisted by the pituitary and the hypothalamus. Now, the good part of cortisol, it's the anti-inflammatory response. So when you are struck with disease, infection, or illness, cortisol calms everything down, smooths it out. That's a good thing. It also regulates glucose metabolism. What the hell is glucose? Glucose is the gasoline of the body. So everything you eat is broken down into glucose. And it's cortisol that regulates the amount of glucose. But wait. I thought it was the insulin in the pancreas that regulates the glucose. Yeah, that brings it down. But cortisol brings it up. It sends the message to produce glucose, and it regulates fat burning. So the brain uses a certain amount of fat, but the heart uses sugar. So your heart and your brain use different types of fuel. So the cortisol also regulates the amount of salt and water balance. Wait a second. You need salt, right? But you can have too much salt. And you need water, but you could have too much water. So you need a particular balance of salt and water. And so the cortisol regulates that. It also regulates blood pressure. So if your blood pressure goes up, cortisol brings it down. And if your blood pressure is too low or your blood sugar is too low, then cortisol brings it back up. So you can have a sugar high, you could have a sugar low. You could have a salt high, you could have a salt low. Cortisol regulates both of those. Isn't that fascinating? Now, the only thing we hear about is the bad part of cortisol. So, cortisol creates carbohydrate craving. Now, what's a carbohydrate craving? Everybody likes bread. Everybody likes donuts. Everybody likes cookies. Everybody likes cake. We all like those things. But if we're craving them, it means our body is creating too much cortisol. And that leads to belly fat. But that's not the bad part. Belly fat's not the bad part. You might have heard of something called a dowager's hump, which is a fatty thing in between the shoulder blades high up on the back. And it happens to elderly women. That fatty hump is also caused by too much cortisol. Of course, posture and eating crappy food doesn't help either. But it also creates bad moods. Now, we all know that elderly person, gentleman, or old lady who's really nasty and mean, and we can't stand them, and we think there's something wrong with them. Well, it is. It's because their cortisol's too high. So that bad mood and that really high changeable mood, plus muscle weakness, plus bone loss. Well, now just think about that, because that just blows me away. Old people, muscle weakness. Old people, bone loss. Old people, high blood pressure. It's not old people, it's high cortisol. So that comes to the second most important question that you should be asking yourself right now. Why am I producing too much cortisol? And the first most important question is how to get rid of the cortisol. But first things first. Why is my body producing too much cortisol? Well, guess what? The answer is easier than you thought. It's distress. Now there's eustress, EU stress, which is good stress. So running, biking, hiking, jumping, climbing, running, that's all eustress. That's good stress. But then there's distress. And what is distress? Distress is anything that is difficult to recover from. So now, what are we recovering from? Well, I have people who are stressing me out. I got teenagers living in my house, coming in all hours of the day or night, leaving the kitchen dirty. I got workmen fixing my roof, and the holes in the roof, and they're coming and going, but the hole is still there. I got an elderly mother I got to take care of, and her caretakers aren't doing their jobs. I have 3 locations. Somebody quit in my office, and I got to do their work plus my work. So there's any number of reasons of emotional stress, physical stress, Transportation stress. Now, stress needs to be recovered from. How do you recover from stress? You take a nap. You go to sleep at night. You take a hot tub. You take a ocean swim. There's any number of ways that you can lower your stress healthfully on a day-to-day basis. However, if you choose not to avail yourself of Qigong or dance or swimming or a very positive home life or a happy relationship, all of which can de-stress you, if you choose not to do that, then the stress builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. And you don't clear the stress. That's when the cortisol levels go past the point of recovery, which leads to high blood pressure and belly fat and worse. So, how do you get rid of it? Well, I'm going to obviously suggest Qigong is the best way to get rid of your stress. Qigong is the best way to lower your cortisol levels. So rest and relax, eating right, having a good and healthy relationship, and sleep. Sleep, lack of sleep, is the biggest cause of cortisol levels rising. Lack of sleep. How come nobody knows that? We should all know that you need more rest and you need more sleep. Oh, you do know that, but why don't you pay attention to it? So I remember about 15 years ago, I had a patient come to see me. She was a city councilwoman in New Jersey. And she was in law school at the same time she was a city councilwoman. And she was a single mom. And she was taking care of her mother who had Alzheimer's. So I don't know how you juggle all those things in a healthy way. Obviously you don't, which is why she was my patient. And so I said, you got to drop something. You got to kick the teens out. You got to let somebody take over your mother's care. You can't drop out of law school and you're already a city councilwoman. So you got to prioritize and cut some of these things out. And she said, all I want to do, Dr. Love, is lose weight. I'm not trying to hear anything else you're trying to tell me. Just tell me how to lose weight. So I explained to her about the fasting and the juicing and becoming a vegetarian, and she did all of that. And guess what? She didn't lose more than 5 pounds, and she got very frustrated with me. And then I had to go and print out all the things about belly fat and cortisol and stress. And she broke down in tears. And she said, I know you're right, but I thought I was different. I thought I could beat all that. I thought I could be Superwoman. And clearly, it didn't work. So, her mother died. The teenagers ran away. And her stress level went up even higher. So, if you don't put your own best interests at the top, you cannot help another person. If you don't take care of yourself, you cannot help anyone else. If you're a parent, you have to teach your kids self-reliant by being self-reliant yourself. You have to put yourself first so they can see that. You have to be the model for self-care. Because if you're always cleaning up after your kids and taking care of your kids and cooking your kids and driving your kids around, How does that develop self-reliance? I have a very good friend whose son is in medical school in England. And every time he comes home, he goes to the mall and he calls his mother on the phone. What should I get? Where is it? How do I find it? And I'm like, he's calling you on a cell phone that has a GPS and there's a directory in the mall and he's calling you? I said, hang up the phone. And she said, I can't. That's my baby boy. I'm like, okay, I'm not talking to you anymore. Goodbye. I don't have time for people who don't value themselves. Okay, we're going to open up the phone lines. We're going to open up the question line. Ask Dr. Love. So if you've got questions about too much or too little cortisol, what you can do to resolve it, what your own personal situation is, type away.
So Rachel on Facebook says it is also great to have a relaxing massage too.
Absolutely. Every week you should get a massage from Rachel. A relaxing massage from Rachel. One where she doesn't talk you to death. I'm just joking. Rachel doesn't talk you to death. So.
What are the foods that lower cortisol?
Oh, what foods lower cholesterol?
Cortisol.
Oh, what foods lower cortisol? Okay. So, C, vegetables. So that would be arame, hijiki, wakame. That would be nori, dulse. Any of the C vegetables would be very good at lowering cortisol.
Would plant estrogen help with losing weight after menopause?
Plant estrogen help with losing weight?
After menopause.
Absolutely not. Stay away from all estrogenic foods. No estrogenic foods whatsoever. Okay? I'm very curious as to how we segued into food when we talked about cortisol regulating blood sugar and blood fat. So anything that's going to be a simple carbohydrate, such as rice and potatoes, is not good. And anything that is plant-based carbohydrate, like carrots and celery and lettuce and cucumbers, is going to be better. So anything that's salad greens, fruits and seeds and salad greens, those would be much better, because everything is reduced to glucose. So we want complex carbohydrates, not simple carbohydrates. So it has more to do with rest and relaxation. Rest and digest and breathing. And did I mention Qigong? Did I say Qigong? Yes. You got to do Qigong 30 to 40 minutes, 6 days a week. That is going to maintain your cortisol levels. And we also do a reverse aging facial. And we also do swing arms. And we also do anatomy drumming, body brain drumming. All these things regulate cortisol. Question.
So outside of the accumulation of body fat in the stomach area, what other symptoms can you feel? or see in your body?
Okay, so number one is the fatty hump between the shoulders. Secondarily, fatty jaws, turkey neck, jowly, what they call Cushing syndrome. That's where the face gets really fat. The arms and legs are skinny, but the face and neck is fat. High blood pressure is a symptom. Moodiness, muscle weakness, and bone loss, what we call osteopenia and osteoporosis. So anytime you are prematurely aging, premature aging is high cortisol levels that make you look old and feel old. So get enough rest, get enough exercise, eat right. And you've heard that from your mother and your grandmother your whole life, but because they weren't doctors, you didn't listen, because the TV said nobody doesn't like Sara Lee, but you can't eat just one Lay's potato chip. Hot dogs, hamburgers, and milkshakes are healthy foods, and you believed it. So that's what's going on. You believed the commercial advertisements about the dollar menu and fast foods and sugary sodas and caffeinated sugary drinks, and all that spikes your cortisol levels. So it's not what you need to eat to lower cholesterol, it's what you need to avoid to lower cortisol. I keep saying cholesterol. Okay, so
Question. So would walking or brisk walking, would that help?
well, like I said, rest and relax. So brisk walking is a great exercise, but is that going to lower your stress? I think resting and relaxing would be much better.
Somebody said, okay. I read that inhaling Corey sage essential oil in the morning helped lower cortisol. Is this true?
I read that inhaling
Corey sage in the morning.
Corey sage.
That's probably
Corey sage.
essential oil. Is it?
Okay. I've never heard of that. I never heard of Corey sage, and I never heard of inhaling it. So you stumped me, Karen. I know a lot about aromatherapy, but I've never heard of Corey sage. So you'll have to.
Clary.
Oh, clary sage. Okay.
Clary sage.
Okay, clary sage lowers stress, and if your stress levels go down, then maybe your cortisol levels go down. So yes, I have heard of clary sage.
Rachel is offering her services if anybody would like a massage.
Okay, we're coming over right after this to get a massage. Since you're offering, I got the whole team. I'm coming with 4 people to get a massage from Rachel.
It's awesome.
So, how can what you have to offer help them lower their cortisol levels?
Okay, so as we said in the very beginning, the adrenals, the pituitary, and the hypothalamus is what secretes cortisol. So what would make it secrete higher is the inability to recover from stress. And Qigong exercise specifically helps you recover from stress. So the kidney flow, hey ho, do the kidney flow. So if you're following the class in the morning, then you know that we do specific exercises for the kidneys and the adrenal glands. And that regulates the hormone production. Our next podcast is going to be on the 3 hormones that the kidney secretes and the 3 hormones that the adrenal secretes. So that's 6 hormones that's coming out of your kidneys and adrenals. That's going to be our next podcast. So I want you to know that I've done a lot of research to prove that Qigong regulates hormone flow from the kidneys. So that will de-stress. Number 2, when we do the lymph swing, we get the pituitary involved. So all of the movements that we do in the lymph swing regulate the pituitary, which regulates all the hormone productions. And then lastly, the hypothalamus is the regulator between the nervous system and the spinal, the neuro system and the endocrine system. So the hypothalamus is the regulator between the nervous system and the endocrine system. So that's what the hypothalamus does. And so Qigong specifically works on the hypothalamus, the particular movements that we do with Qi dance and endocrine drumming specifically regulate the hypothalamus, which then regulates the production of cortisol.
And how do they sign up for this class?
You go to loveqigong.com. That's loveqigong.com. That's how you sign up for the Morning Boost Your Immune System course. And you're going to learn all about Tai Chi, yoga, and Qigong in the morning class. You're going to learn about your immune system. You're going to learn about your lymphatic system. You're going to learn about cerebrospinal fluid. You're going to learn about the interstitium, which is a brand new organ that they just discovered in 2018. You're going to learn about your endocrine system. You're going to learn about your fascia and connective tissue, because all that is physiotherapy that's included in the medical Qigong that we teach within the Blue Dragon system. So when you sign up for loveqigong.com, you're going to have access to the archives of all of that information.
Sounds amazing.
I can only help those who want to be helped. And you got to be in it to win it. So if you're not in the Boost Your Immune Qigong online class, or you don't come to the beach in the mornings at 7:30 in Atlantic Avenue in Del Rey, right across the street from the hotel, in front of the lifeguard stand, if you're not there, then you're wanting me to do acupuncture. Because that's the only way you can heal yourself is in the Qigong class. And if you don't avail yourself of the Qigong on a daily basis, then you're going to have to come for acupuncture. So I want to thank you all for listening. And I want you to remember, your health is in your hands. And prevention is the only cure. And in order to be well, you've got to Qigong well. I'm Dr. George Xavier Love for Ask Dr. Love and the Blue Dragon Qigong Academy. Thank you.